The boy's chest rose too fast, then not fast enough. Roxy counted his breaths under her own, palms slick, hark loud in her ears. Hospital lights flickered. Somewhere down the corridor, footsteps ran, not fast enough. "Stay with me, Jordan," she whispered, because saying his name felt like a promise she didn't remember making. When his father finally appeared, fear cracked the control in his eyes. The doctor's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to talk about a transplant." Rain slicked the pavement into mirrors, turning the long drive up the hill into a slow, breath-held climb. Roxy kept one hand on the strap of her bag as if it might run away. Inside it, debt notices were folded small enough to pretend they weren't screaming. Her shoes were damp. Her head throbbed with the math she'd stopped doing because it never worked out anyway. The gates opened without ceremony. The house revealed itself in stages: stone, glass, light held back behind tall windows. It didn't glow, it watched. Roxy paused just long enough to steady her breathing before stepping inside, where warmth hit her skin and quiet pressed close, deliberate and expensive. A boy sat on the floor near the stairs, building something with wooden blocks. Not a tower, something careful, low, precise. He didn't look up right away. When he did, his eyes flicked to her shoes, then her hands, then her face, cataloging without judgment. "Hi," she said softly. He nodded once. That was all. His lips were pale, not blue, not yet. His chest moved faster than the rhythm of play required. When he laughed, one short sound, it ended too quickly, like he'd run out of air mid-thought. Roxy felt the itch of attention settle in her bones. A housekeeper led her through rules delivered in a smooth, practiced voice: schedules, boundaries, where to stand, what not to touch. The boy, Jordan, was mentioned like a fragile heirloom, loved, watched, protected. Roxy watched him watch her. Later, when she knelt to help him with the blocks, she noticed the way his fingers trembled before they steadied, the way he paused before standing, like his body asked permission first. She noticed because she always noticed, because exhaustion had sharpened her senses into something close to instinct. A presence entered the room without announcing itself. She didn't turn at first. She felt it, the air shifting, the weight finding its place. "Jordan," a man's voice said, low, controlled, "you should be resting." The boy's shoulders lifted, then fell. "I am." Roxy turned then. She saw a silhouette against the window, tall, still, carved out of shadow. Gray Ashford didn't need to raise his voice. Authority lived in the way he held silence. His gaze touched the room before it touched her, assessing, deciding. "This is Roxy," the housekeeper said, "your son's new caregiver." Gray's eyes flicked to her face, brief, sharp, then away. "We have doctors and a routine." "Yes, sir," Roxy replied, because that was the shape of survival. Still, when she spoke again, her voice didn't shake. "He seems short of breath after activity, and his lips, sometimes." The housekeeper's smile tightened. "He's been evaluated." Gray's silhouette didn't move. "We appreciate diligence, but let's not create problems where there aren't any." Roxy nodded.
Enjoying the story so far? Whether you're listening while trying to catch some sleep, getting through your chores, or just taking a quiet moment for yourself, we're glad you're here. Take a minute and tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and stay with us for more stories like this.
Roxy learned quickly that tiredness came in layers. There was the surface kind, the kind coffee pretended to fix, and then there was the deeper one, the kind that lived behind her eyes and hummed in her bones while she worked, while she smiled, while she counted hours like they were coins. She woke before dawn, dressed quietly, checked her phone out of habit she couldn't afford to break. Another email, another reminder that interest never slept. She folded it away inside herself and went downstairs. Jordan was already awake, sitting at the long table with his feet tucked beneath the chair, tracing shapes into condensation on a glass of water. He smiled when he saw her, not wide, not loud, just enough to acknowledge that the day felt different now. "Did you sleep?" she asked. He shrugged. "A little." That was his way, nothing wasted, no extra words. The house moved on schedule. Meals arrived at precise times. Medications were logged. Gray passed through rooms like a shadow tethered to clocks, always present, never lingering. He spoke to Jordan gently, efficiently, a hand on the shoulder, a question about homework, a reminder to rest. Grief showed itself in repetition. Roxy noticed the way Gray always checked the locks twice before leaving, the way he stood at the foot of the stairs every morning, waiting until Jordan disappeared from sight before turning away. No photographs in the hallways, no laughter lingered. They spoke little to each other. When they did, it was clipped, polite, charged in a way neither of them acknowledged. A look held half a second too long, silence thick enough to trip over. Jordan followed Roxy like a quiet tide. He showed her the hidden place behind the couch where dust never settled. He brought her a book he didn't read, just liked holding. When he laughed with her, really laughed, his body leaned into it like it needed support. Roxy adjusted without thinking, a hand at his back, a pause between breaths. She noticed the smell first. Late afternoon, sunlight slanting through glass, the faint antiseptic edge in the air when a visiting nurse stopped by. The scent slid into Roxy's chest and pulled something loose. Hospital white, two bright lights, the echo of her own heartbeat in a room where she had once learned how to keep breathing without screaming. She excused herself to the bathroom and ran cold water over her wrists until the memory loosened its grip. In the mirror, her face looked composed. Her body remembered things her mind refused to name. Watched from the doorway when she returned. Didn't ask, didn't comment, just nodded once and stepped aside. Jordan insisted on playing outside before dinner. The rain had stopped, leaving the grass slick and shining. He ran carefully at first, then faster, laughing when Roxy chased him. For a moment, the house seemed to forget itself. Then Jordan stopped. His laughter cut off mid-sound. He bent forward, hands on his knees, chest heaving too fast, too shallow. Roxy was with him instantly, dropping to the ground, calling his name. His lips were pale now, definitely pale. "Jordan?" she said, steady but loud enough to break the air. "Look at me." He tried. He didn't finish the breath. Gray's voice cut through the yard. "What's happening?" Jordan swayed once, then collapsed. Roxy caught him before his head hit the ground, shouting for help as Gray ran toward them, fear breaking through his control like glass. Minutes blurred, shouts, phones, sirens growing louder. And then, red and blue lights washed over the estate, painting the walls in emergency color as the ambulance doors swung open. Gray stood frozen at the edge of the drive, rain beginning again, while Roxy climbed into the back beside the boy who was suddenly much too still. Hospitals had their own weather. Air too cold, lights too bright, sound moving in waves. Footsteps, clipped voices, the whine of machines that never slept. Roxy stood at Jordan's bedside with her hands curled into fists she couldn't unclench, watching numbers rise and fall like they were bargaining for his life. Gray paced, not back and forth, never that careless. He moved in tight lines, checking his watch, scanning doors, issuing instructions to people who nodded and disappeared. Control was how he breathed. When it faltered, it did so sharply. "This should have been caught," he said, voice low, lethal in its calm. His eyes were on Roxy now. "You said you noticed something." "I did," she replied, She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I told the housekeeper. I mentioned it to you." "You're not a doctor." "No," she said, "but I know when a child is struggling to breathe." The words landed between them and stayed there. Gray's jaw tightened. Fear flared behind his eyes before he smothered it. "My son has been under care since birth," he said. I'm suggesting we don't assume anything," Roxy cut in, surprising herself with the steadiness of her tone. "Run the tests, all of them." The doctor approached, a tablet hugged to his chest like a shield. "Mr. Ashford," he began, glancing between them, "there are indications this may be a chronic condition that was under-recognized." Gray stilled. "Explain." "There are markers we should have tracked more aggressively. Oxygen saturation patterns, cardiac strain. It's subtle in children, easy to miss if no one was looking," Roxy finished quietly. Gray turned to her again. For a moment, his authority slipped and something raw pushed through. Panic, helplessness. He heard it in her voice now, the urgency that matched the ache clawing at his ribs. "Do it," he said to the doctor. "Every test." The doctor nodded. "We'll start immediately." A nurse moved to enter orders at the station down the hall. Her fingers hovered, then paused. A screen blinked. She frowned, tapped again, and moved on without comment. Roxy noticed. She always did. In the room, Jordan stirred. His lashes fluttered. Roxy leaned in instinctively, smoothing his hair back, counting breaths under her own. Gray stood close enough now that she could feel the heat of him, the tension radiating off his frame like a held storm. "Thank you," he said, barely audible. She looked up, startled. Their faces were too close. The world narrowed to the space between them, the hum of machines, the faint scent of antiseptic and rain. His eyes searched hers with a question neither of them could afford to ask. An alarm shrieked. Both of them jumped as nurses rushed in, voices urgent, hands moving fast. Gray stepped back, the moment severed cleanly. Orders flew, curtains pulled. Roxy was guided away, her heart hammering like it had something to confess. Minutes stretched into something unrecognizable. The doctor returned, face drawn, eyes grave. Gray straightened before the words were spoken, bracing like a man who knew impact was coming. "We've confirmed significant organ failure," the doctor said. "We'll stabilize him, but long-term—" Roxy's breath caught. Gray's fists clenched. "He needs a transplant." Silence swallowed the room whole. Some moments don't ask if you're ready. They only ask who you'll become. Jordan came home wrapped in rules. Monitors arrived before he did. Medication schedules are taped neatly inside a cabinet. A nurse assigned to nights. Gray moved through the house, issuing instructions like he was building scaffolding around something fragile and already cracked. Roxy became part of the structure without ceremony. She learned the beeps of the machines, the way Jordan's shoulders tensed before a coughing spell, the exact pressure that helped him breathe easier when fear made his chest tighten. She stayed close, but never crossed a line. Help offered, space respected, care given without ownership. Gray noticed. He watched from doorways, from the quiet edges of rooms where the cameras blinked red and steady. He didn't interfere. He didn't thank her again. Gratitude felt too close to dependence. Late afternoon light spilled across the living room as Jordan napped. Roxy sat on the floor nearby, sorting pills into a labeled tray. Her wrist brushed the table leg, and something snapped. A bracelet, thin, cheap, old, fell apart in her hands. She stared at it for a second longer than necessary before slipping the broken chain into her pocket. Gray, standing nearby, followed the motion with his eyes. Neither of them commented. Some things didn't ask to be seen. That evening, Gray's voice drifted down the hall. Roxy paused near the stairs, a glass of water in her hand. "No," Gray said quietly, "that's not acceptable." A beat. "I understand the urgency. I don't care. Find another solution." Silence followed, heavy, charged. When he noticed her, he ended the call without explanation. Their eyes met, hers questioning, his guarded. "Jordan needs his rest," he said. "So do you," she replied before she could stop herself. Gray held her gaze. For a moment it looked like he might say something else, something honest. Then footsteps echoed, and the nurse passed between them, the moment dissolving. Later, Jordan woke frightened. Roxy sat on the edge of the bed, talking softly until his breathing slowed. Gray hovered in the doorway, hands in his pockets like he didn't know what to do with them anymore. "You don't have to stay," he said, not meeting his eyes. "I know," Roxy answered. She stayed anyway. Hours slipped past. The house settled into its nocturnal hum. Cameras clicked faintly as they rotated, always watching, always recording. Roxy went to log Jordan's evening medications and stopped. A file was missing. Not misplaced, gone. Her fingers hovered over the empty space. She checked again, slower, more carefully. Still gone. Gray appeared behind her without warning. "Is something wrong?" She turned, heart thudding, considered lying, didn't. One of Jordan's records, it was here. Gray's expression didn't change, but something tightened behind his eyes. "I'll look into it." Their gazes locked, tension threading the air between them. Trust hovered, fragile as breath. Roxy nodded, even as a quiet certainty settled in her chest. This house wasn't just watching, it was hiding something. The hospital felt different this time, quieter, as if the building itself had learned how to hold its breath. Jordan slept beneath thin sheets, machines whispering instead of shouting now. Roxy stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded tight across her chest, watching the steady rise and fall she no longer trusted. Gray stood on the other side of the glass wall, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low fragments meant for power, not comfort. They were both pretending this was temporary. A doctor approached with a clipboard and a face that had learned how to soften bad news without dulling it. "We're beginning donor compatibility testing," she said. "Family first, then expanded matches." Roxy felt the word family scrape something raw. "We'll need blood from everyone closely involved in his care," the doctor continued. "Sometimes proximity reveals unexpected compatibility." Roxy opened her mouth to decline. She didn't know why, only that something in her recoiled, sharp and instinctive. Her fingers curled into her sleeves. The hospital smell crept in again, metallic and clean, dragging memory behind it like a shadow she refused to face. Gray ended his call and turned. His gaze flicked to her, then away. "Do it," he said to the doctor. Then to Roxy, quieter, "You don't have to." She met his eyes, saw the fear he wouldn't name sitting just beneath the surface. Fear recognized fear. "I can," she said. "I will." The storm arrived while they waited. Rain lashed the windows in uneven bursts, thunder rolling low and distant like something arguing with the sky. Roxy sat alone in a small room, sleeve rolled up, watching her blood fill a vial. Red, ordinary, dangerous in ways she didn't yet understand. Time stretched thin. Hours passed. Phones buzzed and went quiet. Nurses walked by without stopping. Gray paced the corridor outside Jordan's room, his reflection multiplying in the glass, a man surrounded by versions of himself he couldn't outrun. When the doctor returned, she didn't smile. "Mr. Ashford," she said, gesturing for him to remain outside. Her eyes moved to Roxy instead. "Miss Ediemi, could you come with me?" The room they led her to was smaller, no windows, just a chair positioned carefully as if it had been thought about too long. "Please," the doctor said gently, "sit." Roxy did. The silence thickened. Her pulse roared in her ears. She thought of student loans, of late nights, of a bracelet in her pocket, broken but kept, of a choice she'd made years ago and never spoken aloud again. Gray stood behind the glass watching. He couldn't hear the words, only see the way Roxy's posture stiffened, the way her hand moved instinctively to her stomach, then stilled. The doctor folded her hands. "We ran the preliminary results twice." Roxy swallowed. "Okay." "Miss Adiemi," the doctor said carefully, "are you aware you are a biological match?" The world tilted, not violently, quietly, like a truth finally stepping forward, patient and merciless. Behind the glass, Gray leaned closer, dread blooming across his face as he realized something irreversible had just entered the room. What if the past didn't stay buried because it was waiting for you? Gray read the message once, then again. No sender, no number, just a line of text that felt like a hand closing around his throat. Cooperate or lose the boy. He didn't move. The corridor hummed around him, wheels squeaking, voices low, the antiseptic air pressing in. He typed nothing back. He didn't need to. Whoever sent it knew the language of leverage, knew where to press. Inside the room, Jordan slept, a thin line of drool at the corner of his mouth, chest rising, falling. Gray watched it like a metronome that could shatter at any second. He looked up. Cameras blinked in the ceiling. Roxy sat alone in a smaller room down the hall, the door closed, the light dim. The word matched replayed in her head until it lost meaning. She stared at her hands. They were steady. That terrified her more than shaking would have. Mother. The word arrived without ceremony, no swelling music, no revelation that felt kind. Just wait. Memory pressed up from beneath the floorboards, sterile white, the echo of a nurse's shoes, the paper gown that didn't quite close, a signature written with a pen that kept skipping. She had chosen survival and called it mercy. She had buried the rest so she could keep breathing. She couldn't let this surface now. She folded the truth inward, compact and sharp, and stood. Gray had already changed the rules. By evening, guards appeared where there had been none. Doors required codes she didn't have. Her phone lagged, then dropped calls mid-sentence. A nurse who had smiled the day before avoided her eyes. The cameras seemed closer, louder. Gray didn't explain. He didn't apologize. He ordered. For Jordan's safety, he said. For everyone's. Roxy felt the walls inch closer. They met in the hallway outside Jordan's room, voices low and brittle. "You can't lock this place down without telling me why," she said. "I can, and I will." "I'm not a threat." "Neither was my wife," he said, then stopped, too late. The silence that followed was brutal. Roxy felt it like a slap. "You don't get to look at me like that," she said, "like I'm something you need to manage." Gray's eyes were dark, exhausted. "You don't get to pretend this is normal," he shot back. "Someone is trying to take my son." The word son landed between them and split something open in her chest. She turned away before her face betrayed her. "Then protect him," she said. "Don't turn me into another locked door." A commotion erupted at the end of the hall. Raised voices. A cart is wheeling too fast. Gray moved first. Roxy followed. Jordan's room was empty. The bed sheets were rumpled. Monitors were disconnected. The IV stand stood alone, humming softly, a line trailing uselessly to the floor. A nurse stammered. There was an order, transport. Gray grabbed the chart from her hands. His phone buzzed again. You had your warning. Roxy's breath left her in a sound she didn't recognize. She stared at the empty bed, the shape of her child absent like a wound. Somewhere in the hospital, a door closed, and Jordan was gone. They found Jordan 2 floors down in a diagnostic wing that smelled like dust and old plastic, unused, forgotten. He was curled on a narrow bed, IV hastily reattached, eyes wide and glassy with shock. When he saw Gray, he reached out without sound, fingers shaking. Gray crossed the room in 3 strides and gathered him in carefully, like the world might splinter if he held too tight. "I'm here," he said, over and over, as if repetition could undo the minutes that had nearly broken him. "I've got you." Roxy stood frozen at the doorway, relief hitting her so hard it hurt. Her knees threatened to give. When Jordan's gaze flicked to her, something softened. He nodded once, a tiny thing, but it felt like permission to breathe again. The relief didn't last. Gray's phone buzzed while Jordan slept, sedated again, guarded now by men who didn't blink. The message was longer this time, detailed, precise. It referenced medical access codes that shouldn't exist anymore. It referenced dates, one in particular that made Gray's blood run cold. The night his wife died. He leaned against the wall, the pieces snapping into place with sickening clarity. The rushed investigation, the missing footage, the insurance settlement pushed through before grief had finished landing. The same private medical firm is now circling his son. This wasn't chaos, it was leverage, patient and cruel. Roxy found him there, shoulders bowed, knuckles white. "Gray," she said, his name slipping out before she could stop it. He looked up, the armor cracked. "They killed her," he said hoarsely, "or let her die, and now they think they can finish the job." Roxy's chest tightened until words forced their way out in fragments. "The tests, the blood work, I wasn't supposed to." Gray turned fully then. "What aren't you telling me?" She closed her eyes, the truth pushed against her teeth like it had been waiting all along. "I gave a child up," she said, "years ago. Closed adoption. I tried to find him later. I couldn't." Gray's breath stuttered. "I didn't know," she rushed on. "I swear I didn't. I didn't come here for this," he finished, the realization crashing through him. He stepped back, like proximity might shatter what little control he had left. Anger flared first, bright, protective, terrified, then disbelief, then guilt, heavy and suffocating. "You were here," he said, "every day, and you hired me," she said softly, "to fill a gap." The final demand arrived before either of them could say more. A location, a time, a sum that could buy silence or blood. Gray looked at Roxy, something raw and unguarded flickering between them. "I won't pay, but I won't let them touch him again." Roxy nodded, tears burning but contained. "Neither will I." For a moment it felt like something might be spoken, something fragile and dangerous and true. Their hands brushed, the world held still. Then the doors burst open. Uniforms flooded the corridor. A warrant waved in the air. An officer spoke Gray's name like it was already written down somewhere permanent. "Mr. Ashford," he said, "we have a court order regarding the custody and medical guardianship of the child." Roxy's heart dropped as Gray slowly raised his hands. If love is real, why does it hurt most when it finally speaks? The rain came down like an accusation. It hammered the hospital windows, streaking the glass until the world beyond blurred into motion and light. Inside, power flickered once, twice, before settling into a brittle hum. The corridor outside the consultation room was filled with voices, radios crackling, and shoes moving too fast. Gray stood at the center of it all, hands braced on the table, breathing like he'd run out of time long before tonight. "Say it," he told Roxy, his voice stripped of command. "Say all of it." She didn't cry, not yet. She folded her arms around herself, grounding the way she'd learned to do years ago when the ground had fallen away and no one had been there to catch her. "I was 20, she began, still in school, drowning in loans, working nights, then mornings. I got sick and didn't know why. When I found out, it felt like my body had betrayed me." Gray's jaw clenched. "I loved him," she said, her voice steady in a way that hurt. "Before I ever held him, I loved him. But love doesn't pay rent. Love doesn't keep the lights on. I signed papers because everyone said it was the responsible thing. They said someone else could give him a life I couldn't." She swallowed. The room felt too small now. "I looked for him later, after graduation, after I had a little stability. The adoption was sealed. No names, no trail. I failed every way there was to fail." Gray turned away. His shoulders shook once before he caught himself. "My wife wanted more children," he said quietly. "She used to say Jordan needed someone who would see him, not manage him. And I thought I had time." The storm outside cracked open the sky. Roxy stepped closer, something fierce and unplanned rising in her. "I didn't know it was him, but I knew something was wrong. I kept notes, times, symptoms. I didn't think anyone would listen." Gray froze. "What notes?" She pulled her phone from her pocket, hands trembling now, and opened a folder she'd never meant to share. Dates, photos, screenshots, a recording of a nurse's voice whispering that orders had changed again, messages she hadn't understood then, numbers, instructions, urgency that didn't match care. Gray stared as the shape of the trap revealed itself. They weren't just extorting you, they were slowing him down, making him worse. Sirens wailed outside, footsteps thundered down the hall. The door to Jordan's room stood ajar. He was awake. Small hands clenched the sheet, eyes wide, wet, far too aware. He had heard enough, maybe everything. Roxy crossed the room and knelt beside him. "I'm here," she whispered, tears finally breaking free. "I never left. I just didn't know how to come back." Gray dropped to the other side of the bed, grief tearing through him without restraint now, grief for his wife, for the son he nearly lost, for years that could never be returned. "I'm sorry," he told Jordan, voice breaking. "I should have protected you better." Doctors rushed in, nurses followed, orders barked, efficient and sharp. Prep for surgery. Outside, arrests were made, hands cuffed, phones confiscated. The storm swallowed the sound. As they wheeled Jordan away, his small fingers reached out, catching both of theirs. For the first time, neither of them let go. The room was quiet in a way that felt earned. Machines hummed low and steady, no longer shouting for attention. Morning light slipped through half-drawn curtains, pale and careful, as if it didn't want to disturb the fragile peace it found there. Jordan slept with color back in his cheeks, one hand curled loosely around a corner of the blanket, breathing deep and unafraid. Roxy sat in the chair beside the bed, her shoes kicked off, her body heavy with a tiredness that finally had somewhere to land. Gray sat across from her on the edge of the couch, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up as he had run out of reasons to look put together. They didn't speak. Silence wasn't empty anymore. It held things, relief, grief, questions that no longer demanded immediate answers. When Roxy shifted, Gray reached out without looking, steadying the chair before it scraped. Their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away. Jordan stirred, eyes fluttering open. "You're both still here," he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "We are," Gray said instantly. Roxy smiled, small and real. "Not going anywhere." Jordan nodded, satisfied, and drifted back under. Gray exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. He stood, crossed the room, and poured 2 cups of water from the small sink. He handed one to Roxy, their hands overlapping briefly. Warmth lingered longer than expected. "You didn't have to stay," he said quietly. Roxy watched Jordan's chest rise and fall. "I wanted to." That truth sat between them, unguarded. Gray leaned against the wall beside her, close enough now that she could feel the heat of him through the thin space of air. No control, no orders, just a man stripped down to the bones of himself. "I don't know how to do this, but I'm trying to learn." Roxy nodded. She understood more than he knew. He looked at her then, really looked at her, not as an employee, not as a complication, as someone who had stood in the fire and stayed standing. "Will you stay?" he asked softly, not as a demand, not even as a plea, just a question shaped like hope. Roxy closed her eyes for a moment, thought of debt notices folded small, of broken bracelets, of choices made to survive, of a child breathing easy at last. When she opened them again, she didn't answer right away. Sometimes, staying is braver than leaving. Time did not heal everything, but it steadied what was left. Jordan grew stronger in increments that only those who had waded through fear could recognize. The extra lap around the garden without stopping, the deeper laugh that didn't end in coughing, the way he slept now with his door open, light spilling in like a quiet decision to stay. The house changed with him. Gray stripped it down carefully. Contracts ended, partnerships dissolved. A private medical firm disappeared from his ledgers without ceremony, its influence dismantled piece by piece under scrutiny that didn't flinch. He didn't announce it. He didn't boast. He followed paper trails the way grief had taught him to, patiently, relentlessly, until silence stopped protecting anyone. The call came on a Tuesday morning, an official reopening, new evidence. The night of his wife's death finally pulled back into the light. Gray stood alone in his study when he heard the words. He didn't sit. He didn't speak for a long time. When he did, it was only to say thank you. Then he ended the call and stared out at the trees moving gently in the wind, like witnesses that had waited long enough. Roxy finished school quietly. No announcements, no speeches, just a final submission uploaded at midnight and a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding since her early 20s. The loans didn't vanish, but they stopped feeling like a sentence. She worked less, slept more, learned the difference between surviving and living. She stayed. Not because she was asked again, not because it was easy, because she chose to. They learned from each other in small ways. Gray learned to pause instead of commanding. Roxy learned that safety didn't always disappear when you reached for it. Some nights they sat on opposite ends of the couch, Jordan between them, the quiet full but not heavy. No labels rushed in, no promises were dragged forward to be proven, just presence. One evening, Jordan brought Roxy the repaired bracelet. He had threaded it back together with careful hands, the clasp clumsy but determined. "It broke," he said seriously, "but it's still the same." She smiled and let him fasten it around her wrist, his fingers warm and sure. Gray watched from the doorway, something like peace settling into his shoulders at last. Later, after Jordan slept, Gray and Roxy stood side by side at the kitchen window. Rain traced slow lines down the glass, not violent now, just steady. "I don't know what this becomes," Gray said. Roxy nodded. "Neither do I." They stood there anyway. Outside, the house no longer watched. It rested. And in the quiet that followed everything breaking and being rebuilt without spectacle, one truth remained, soft, unshakable, earned. Some families aren't found by blood, they're forged by the truth that survives.
Hey you, my fellow story family. Thank you for staying with us till the very end. We'd love to hear how this story made you feel. Would you have done anything differently? What did it teach you? If this story mirrors a season of your own life, feel free to share it with us in the comments. Stay close to this channel for more stories that speak of strength, love, and hope.